Catastrophic Reconfiguration is the third full-length album from MOLDER, a Chicago, Illinois area death metal band who are focused on the old school style of death metal. I would say it would be fair to classify them as a new old school death metal band. They're reinterpreting classic old school death metal in a way that is a little bit tuned to more of a modern audience, and that it's a little bit simplified. It is a little bit more conglomerate of different scenery that is historic in this at this point. But they really started out playing in more of an autopsy and master influence style, which was fairly mid-paced, a little bit doomed in places, and had a severed survival kind of vibe. You could tell that was really their baseline, and they did good things with it. They put out several small releases, developed up to a debut LP, and it wasn't mind-blowing stuff, but if you're a fan of autopsy style death metal, it was pretty awesome, and it didn't seem all that serious. They were having fun with it. They were chunking out pretty decent riffs, and it sounded all right. Their kind of big step up was Engrossed in Decay, their second full-length album. You could tell that they'd actually reconfigured the lineup a little bit, and some things had changed, but they had made kind of their leap into the maybe the highest standard they needed to for this type of music. It was the most appropriate production value. They curated a lot of great art for the packaging. It was a pretty solid professional standard, and they didn't go stupid with it. They still had riffs, and I think that's the cool thing about this band. Similar to the band. They did a split with Coffin Rot, and I think that they're kind of on that same level where they're doing something that would appeal to the modern death metal fan, but it's not stupid, it's not lazy, and it's not just trying to make bunk-ass mosh metal and call it death metal. This is actual death metal, and I think that's something to celebrate here as they basically iterate upon Engrossed in Decay with this record. They just do things just a little bit different here and there, and they add a lead guitarist to the mix. So we'll get an example of that here and then talk a little bit more. So the thing about that second record was that it was very polished. It was pretty varietal in what it did. It was also a little bit punkish. There were some throwaway riffs. There was some just easier movements that weren't all that interesting. And a lot of that returns here for Catastrophic Reconfiguration. But they've moved away from the simple punkish death metal style. They've moved towards something that is a little bit more thrashing. It throws in leads more often. The songs kind of flow together in a different way. And while they still have that kind of Swedish death metal jogging chunk riff as one of their bass lines, that doesn't necessarily mean that they sit in place and do nothing. This album moves in a way that it's always writhing, it's always pushing towards the next riff, and even at a mid-pace, it still catches my attention and entertains as just death metal listening. At some point, if you've been listening to death metal long enough, there are points of comfort and there's points of challenge. I would say this band is more about the point of comfort that they give as a pretty classic approach to the riff, and putting together songs that are memorable for the weird things they do with sound effects and different types of progressions and actually catchy songs. That's another thing that I would say about like contemporaries like Coffin Rot is they're giving you reasons to come back to those songs and listen to them that aren't just a lazy ass sample or a mosh metal riff. They've got songs, and I think that the more that death metal has songs, the more we can justify its popularity being more than skin deep. So the record sounds great. The artwork is pretty awesome, and that's all I could really ask for from a modern death metal record that is serious about being a fan of death metal. I want to see a band that's a fan of damn death metal if I'm going to listen to their record, and I feel like this is a pretty genuine result. It's a solid death metal record, and I would recommend it. So that's a high recommendation for me. Check it out if you will. This released on November 8th, and read my review for more in-depth thoughts on this album.